Welcome to Redspin Sports. How's it going, Nate?
What's going on, Justin? It's been a
Oh
long
man,
time since we've gone live on this channel.
I know. It's been a minute.
Well, actually, it hasn't been. That was a joke, but yeah.
Before we hop into sports, I sent you a tweet earlier of Ilhan Omar talking about Margaret Thatcher and how she is a hero
Yeah.
of hers. And it really begs the question, do you think that she knows anything about Margaret Thatcher? Or do you think that this is like one of those question traps, right? Where it's like you're asked a question about, a female politician that you've heard about, right? But maybe you don't know a lot about, and it's like a trapping to get you, like I'm just really curious because for somebody who, has been so at least at times positions herself, very progressive. To have Margaret Thatcher, I mean, Margaret Thatcher,
Oh man, I mean,
as a hero.
the Iron Lady who helped usher in neoliberalism for the UK and was in lockstep with Ronald Reagan's agenda. So, I mean, who supported South African apartheid. I find it hard to believe, Justin, that she is completely. I mean, it's even more disturbing if she doesn't know anything about that to be in her position, right? Like, I mean, that would. I mean, but to either way, there's no explanation for this, man. I mean, it's bad, it's awful, it's weak, and it's just another kind of like, bad signal from the project of the squad. Like that, sadly, I don't take joy in saying this. It's like proving themselves to be, have been neutered politically, essentially by Pelosi and the Democratic machine. I mean, where we are right now. I mean, it's just that you get in there and you realize that all that talk. I mean, you really are going to have to alienate like all the people that you're trying to curry favor with, or just being. So a lot of people really have a hard time when they get to know people personally, like zooming out and thinking like systemically, thinking about what's going on and how it affects the masses of people. Then because then it's like you've developed a kind of relationship. They're able to just that you hear the rhetoric a lot. You hear the kind of and you also see the price there is to pay by not going along with that.
Yeah.
So then you start kind of finding ways to, chalk it up to like some larger strategy that's like can't really be defined. Is like, in no comprehensible way like makes any kind of rational sense towards like getting to the objectives you're talking about. I mean, look, whatever you want to say, it forced the vote. I don't know how, like, it could have been negative other than it could have made Mama Bear Pelosi mad, right? Really mad, and to the point where like it could affect like your ability to rise up in that profession.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't see the downside, and I don't see when there's going to be another opportunity to do something like that that's going to be more advantageous. So I don't know, man. That's kind of where I'm at with it. I mean, Thatcher is just a death corpse, all right, and was when she was walking the earth, well before she was 6 feet under. So I mean, that's what
what's the AOC quote? Like, I'd rather be like a one term, and rock the boat than be like a multi-term. And that's exactly what they're becoming, and at the same time, I try not to be completely cynical, right? Like the cynical side of me just wants to be like, they got a taste and they'll change everything, right? They will drop whatever their principles are to just stay here and play this game and ride this out. But then again, at the same time, they are also up against the Pelosi's and the Schumers that know how to play this game, have more experience playing this game, which is why I think we're all sick of it being a game to begin with, right? And they'll get in and they'll game these young, like these freshman Congress people. They will game them into, look, you just do this now.
Right.
Don't worry. Like, we got you. They will never have you. Like, they will never have you. And by the time you figure that out, now you're just at that next person mid-level now playing the game, and so it's like the two takes, right? Like they're either like willingly just throwing the shit all out the window, like, this money, like this is who I am now, or it's they're getting caught up in those gears of that game that do this. So
Yeah, man.
So yeah, it's wild. And you know what else is wild? 600,000 emails that I hope we get to read real soon.
Yeah, well, I mean, and Adam Schefter reporting too is kind of interesting, right?
Yeah.
Reporting, journalism.
Here's the big question. You know, I don't think we have the kind of audience where we need to really recap what's happened here, you know, in full detail. So I think we can get right to a question that I've been dying to ask you, honestly, for like 3 days now. I wanted to save it for this, and I could have just texted you this question, but I wanted to save it for this. And that is, do you think this is a situation where this investigation's happening? They've read, like, the investigators have read everything.
Yeah.
Do you think now what's happening to Jon Gruden, he's done to himself, and he 100% deserves? Do you think this was the NFL sacrificing somebody and hoping it dies there? Or do you think this came from a different angle? But I just couldn't help but look at, it's like you have this huge investigation. What is one way you find the examples? I'm sure you could find examples with lots of coaches too. I don't think any of us would be shocked or will be shocked when we read more, if we get to read more. But do you think this was the NFL's way of like, smoke bomb, look at this guy, he sucks and we'll get rid of him? Like,
yeah, it's probably that. Yeah. I mean, but the other thing too is that a lot of coaches that talk like that aren't brazen enough to like send emails saying all that stuff either. So
yeah,
it's not as if, I mean, the level, you got to remember who Bruce Allen is. I mean, Bruce Allen is the son of George Allen, right? George Allen, you know, who, or the brother of George Allen, the senator, right, from Virginia, former governor of Virginia, right wing guy. Then you have his father, you know, longtime, you know, Redskins coach, or now the Washington football team organization, and so this guy comes from a very right wing point of view, and it was very clear by the fact that Gruden was repeatedly sending this guy emails that Bruce Allen certainly was receptive to hearing these kind of things, right? So
yeah, yep.
And then, I mean, it really, the Schefter thing really gets like me to the heart of this though, because it gets to the culture of like why, you know, a lot of they don't have no fear that this stuff would ever come out really, because, you know, if you have guys like Schefter that quote, like are referring to, you know, Washington GM Bruce Allen as the editor, right? Why do you ever have any fear that like you're ever going to be exposed, right? I mean, like, or like you're ever going to face adversarial criticism, right, from people that are ostensibly doing reporting to, you know, objectively kind of like give analysis that's going to help fans and the public, you know, better understand what goes on in something such as the collective bargaining, you know, contract negotiations back in 2011 that ended up resulting in the CBA that led up to this current one. To the one that was just recently renewed, at least. So yeah, I mean, I think that there's definitely more. I mean, but I think it's probably a sacrificial lamb, but I also think that it does need to be pointed out that Gruden and his just brazenness here can't be overstated. I mean, it's you know, when you call the Goodell, you know, what he calls him, right? I mean, you know, you don't. I mean, it's not even about woke cancel culture at that point, so to speak. It's like, you know, you're going after the NFL's, you know, what do they always say? Protect the shield, right? Protect the shield. And, you know, he wasn't protecting the shield. And now, you know, he's no longer. It's funny to see in Clay Travis, like predictably, right? Dutifully up there on Tucker talking about another victim of cancel culture. You know, it's like, dude, it's not even, it's not even original, man. Like what, like, I mean, like, really, what does someone have to, like, what kind of principles do you have, basically, at a certain point? I mean, is it just about, like, some woke mob? I mean, it's like that. I mean, that's just such a convenient trope. And the whole way for him to, like, you know, say it's not that is basically to say that it's, oh, well, what about, like, the assault? What about, like, Warren Sapp? You know, Warren Sapp is still in the Ring of Honor. So what about that? What about it, Justin?
His whole grift though, like it's never gonna, like he won't stop. Like it could go as far.
Can't stop, won't stop.
Yeah,
Can't
exactly.
stop, won't stop.
I mean, at what point, like will Clay Travis literally go on television and defend somebody who murders somebody on camera and is like, this person's being canceled? If the situation's right, he'd still, you know what I mean? Like, he can't, like, a wormhole will open if he like lets that guard down, right? Like, that's the grift, man. Like, it has to be. And he's got a staff of people that'll write it and push it, and not understanding that, like, what's happening to Jon Gruden is of no fault of anyone but Jon Gruden's. Don't send those emails and you have a job. You know what I mean? And that's the weirdest part about the cancel culture, like, phenomenon from my standpoint, is that, think about what I just said. Jon Gruden, don't send the emails, you still have your job. That doesn't mean Jon Gruden doesn't think all this stuff.
Right.
He just doesn't send the email.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so it is, I mean, it's such a wild, like, take from my perspective, because they're like, again, it's not like whether this person thinks this or feels this or has hate, like, to their core.
Right.
It's that they also should get to then say it and be vocal about it, and nothing can happen.
Yeah.
A private institution can't fire you for that, or,
right.
Or in this case, he resigned. Not saying he wouldn't have been fired, but you know what I mean? Like, he walked away from this because clearly he knew what was going on. He knew, what's coming. But, at the same time, I am really, really curious to see where this goes now, and what kind of effect, and especially on Kaepernick. Because the conversations that surround him, I think, in these emails are going to be wild. I think that the eye-opening side, if they come out.
Yeah. I see, let's go Brandon in the chat, which, look, I mean, whatever it is, that is hilarious. Just this, to actually see a reporter actually sitting there and be like, oh, yeah, I just saw the video actually, like, yesterday. Yeah. Hey, they're chanting, let's go Brandon. Like, oh yeah. And it's just, I hate that, man. It's like a layup, for like the Ted Cruz's of the world too, because it's like, it's right there in front of you. I mean, we can't. Oh no, it is wild though, just how invested the media is in Joe Biden for a minute. I mean, like, regardless of Trump. I mean, it's just like it's just mind blowing, really, that someone could be so invested in a guy who has so much of a history of bad shit. It speaks to it. It's a testament to Trump derangement syndrome, like nothing else can be. That, like, essentially that Joe Biden of all people has essentially become beyond reproach. Like, it's to the point where, like, he literally, like, could be accused of sexual assault, and, like, no one. Oh wait,
he has been.
And nobody cares. Who matters, right? Who actually has the ability to do something about it.
He got accused of sexual assault at the maximum peak of Believe Women.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, we believe women, just not her.
Alyssa Milano, right? What happened to her? I thought she said believe women.
Yeah.
Wait, no, you're not. But Joe Biden's a saint. He's just, Justin, shut up with you. You're so cynical, all right? Like, I mean, Joe Biden is like my uncle, all right? And the guy down the street, he always made me and my sister ice cream cones, and, like, came over and hung out and, like, kind of threw the ball around with us in the front yard. I mean, to toughen us up, he'd sometimes throw the ball at my head a little bit just to make sure my reflexes were getting tough. It's just kind of that's part of the pro. He's just old.
That's who he is.
No, man, But, you get a little reflex there, make sure you learn how to protect the brain a little bit better, right? But, if we don't have an Uncle Joe, he also brings us back to a simpler time, Justin. He makes me think of that David Lynch, like a American Apple Pie, like, world of, Twin Peaks, that well, not Twin Peaks, 1950s white picket fence, all right?
Yeah.
But and if only we could just get back there, right? When things were simpler, right? When things were simpler.
How is that different than the other guy's slogan?
You know what I mean? Well, just build back better.
Yeah. Build back better, which, by the way, Joe Biden was not the first person to use. So that shit was created.
Hey, shut up. That's not part of the agenda. I gotta have
Yeah.
I gotta have a button where it's like when you say something that's not approved by like Joanne Reed, I can
Just X's
shock,
out.
shock. No, it'll actually send an electric current and like kind of like give you a jolt there to like boom, corrective action there. You know. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways,
I mean, so yeah. I mean, here's here's the thing. What are we gonna get? You know, like I know we don't like to speculate. We've talked about that a few times, but you know what? On this one, I would like to. What do you want to see happen? I mean, first and foremost, I think I know the answer to this, but you want to see all those emails come out, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Like,
And I want to, and
and
I do want to see. I think the Kaepernick angle is absolutely what they are actually trying to kind of put a lid on. They by
yeah,
the knowledge that this is out there. What I can't figure out though is like how high up this leak happened. I mean,
mhm.
it could be from Goodell straight up. Um, I don't. I mean, to your point, that this is something that try to put a lid on it. If that's what happened, then the most likely scenario is definitely going to be that it came from somebody, who's in the commissioner's circle. Because like by
Yeah,
having him call Goodell at FAGGOT, right? Like that to me, it's like all the other terrible stuff. It's like they could kind of push back on like, oh, we're not responding to mob. It's like he can't
yeah,
attack the shield like that, right?
yeah,
But but I if it doesn't come out, if it North stuff doesn't come out, that's who leaked it.
yeah.
Right? And if more does come out, then it was more like it could have been more down the line, and they're going to be sweating bullets down on Park Avenue.
And
right?
yeah, and I think there's a whole second angle to this outside of the Kaepernick stuff that could exist inside of these emails, and that is conversations around the Rooney Rule. That's another one that I mean, we need to see this. We need to see what happens. I'm really hoping. I don't know what I don't know what the Players Association can do to try to force this. Ultimately, it's going to be the NFL's decision. But like, don't discount public pressure. Don't discount to an extent. Don't discount public pressure. So
yeah, the homie man, Jason Whitlock is back at it.
Oh, I'm sure he is.
He is back at it, man. Oh man, I think we might have to go to this.
Let's do it.
We might have to go to this here. All right, let me pull this up. My strange freeze.
Friend of the show, Jason Whitlock.
Friend of the show, Jay Witt. All right, who had some kind of like unceremonious falling out with Clay Travis, but certainly didn't lose his Clay Travis-esque politics there. And so,
oh yeah. Well, the grift pays well. You just got to keep it going.
Yeah, absolutely. So here we go. Look at him. What a handsome guy. All right, let's see what he's got on Kyrie here. Kyrie / Gruden. All right.
Yeah.
To Fearless with Jason Whitlock, and this really is Fearless with Jason Whitlock because Uncle Jimmy is still at home recovering. Had a meeting this morning. He seems to be in improving spirits and optimistic, as we all are. He's going to have a full recovery and return to the show. But while he's away, we're going a little bit more bare bones. I got my fighting spirit back. Not that I ever lost it, but when you get my age, in your mid-50s, it's like you're more careful about what fights you pick and choose. Back in my people that have followed my career for a long time, back in my 20s and 30s, I'd fight with anybody. And he did exactly what I predicted would happen from yesterday's show when I talked about Randy Moss shedding those crocodile tears because he was offended by something Jon Gruden wrote in an email 10 years ago. I predicted exactly how Randy would respond. But let's play the clip.
Nostradamus Whitlock here.
Talking about Randy Moss's response, what potentially Ryan Clark's response would be.
The woke mob of Randy Moss, right?
The tears they're shedding on national TV and tapping into this emotional feminine energy on national TV, this new emasculation of black male public figures. Let's play the clip of me predicting how they would respond. And I know these guys gonna be all upset and they go, because let me just say, they'll cry on air about an email that a white man sent or what a white woman said to his son in a drive-through window. They'll cry on air about that. But what they'll likely do is talk, man, I hope I see Whitlock. I'm gonna whoop his ass.
Yeah.
So, do you notice it?
Good take, right?
White people bring them to tears.
Solid.
Black people make them want to get violent. Think that one through.
Yo.
Yeah. And so
I gotta stop, man.
I can't even follow that logic because Jason Whitlock, you make them violent, you and your bad takes.
No, but he is an avatar for blackness, Justin.
All of it for everybody. Yeah. He speaks for everyone.
He does, because it's like, because they come after him and they said something like, and they didn't go after a specific white person, that means they have an internalized self-hatred of their emasculated black selves, that they've been inoculated with like mass culture and like
feminine
energy from Hollywood and grandmaster masonry of like, feminine cancel culture, like, coming out of the Masonic Lodge out in West Hollywood, right? And then making its way over to the NFL Network studios and ESPN, and just sort of like tapping them with that and being like, yo, hate Whitlock, right? And if you do hate Whitlock enough, then it means you hate black people. And that's where this guy is now, a guy who used to be, a reputable guy. He was on Sports Reporters with Dick Schaap and Wilbon and Bill Roden, and they, that was like kind of the most sort of like, PBS-y kind of ESPN show you would have, more of an academic, intellectual type discourse they would have on there. So I got to hear how you finish this up. I'm not going to play. This is a long thing, but like, it's wild here.
As I said, and that was a condensed clip and it was perfect. I'm not complaining at all. But I went on to make the analogy like,
of course it was perfect. I said it, right?
Yeah.
When we as black men, when we get offended by white men, we're reduced to tears. And what happens in the inner city or among black people, when we get offended by each other, we reach for pistols and guns and firearms and we shoot and kill each other. And I asked people I think this was at the end of yesterday's show, I asked people, think about that, marinate on that. How we as black men respond to conflict depending on the...
Yo, I just gotta say, man, I'm gonna stop sharing. This is like red meat for like, let's not forget, this is on The Blaze. So like, think of all the white audience that's at home, the right-wing white audience, that is just like getting a boner in their pants, hearing like their next guy they can call, like, hey, I'm not racist. Jason Whitlock said this, right? This is like evidence that like, they're just crazy, right? They just shoot each other and stuff and whatnot. And he's trafficking in that bullshit, right? He's trafficking in that to serve an audience that's not very heavily black.
No.
All right. Like, and that's not just me saying that. You can look at all kinds of like, they've done, ratings and kind of demographic studies of people's audiences and stuff that he's not appealing to a mass black audience. I mean, I'm sure there's some, but that's not buttering his bread right now. And he wants,
he's going after the white, like essentially anti-athlete. And by anti-athlete, we mean the person who just wants them to shut up and do their job.
Shut up and dribble.
Yeah, like that is his audience, and this just helps perpetuate the black on black crime, all the stuff he's always peddled.
Yeah,
that keeps the focus off of actual issues, actual problems, like the actual cause.
Oh, right.
Cause and effect. Wild. I mean, how long until he becomes like InfoWars, like sports guy?
What do you mean? He kind of already is, right?
I'm saying like actually like has a sports spot on InfoWars.
It's moving in that direction. It's moving in that direction, man. We got Jeffrey in the house now. What's going on? How's everything? How's everything out in Western? How's everything in Western Nebraska these days? Right, home of the what is it, Jeffrey? Are you in Scottsbluff? Is that it? Anyways, yes, I answered in the chat, but
I mean, Nebraska gave Michigan a little bit of a run there.
I also had to ask you about Iowa.
I don't want to talk about Iowa.
I mean,
I don't want to talk about Iowa. I don't want to talk about it.
Are they going to win the national championship? I mean,
oh God, no! Oh God, no! Oh God, no!
I mean, come on,
God,
like the Fighting Kirk Ferences with like their heart and hustle.
I don't know who's going to win the Big Ten East, but whoever it is will destroy them in the Big Ten title game. I just see it. Oh, Jeffrey, no, they can't. No, they can't. They're not going to get over that hurdle. No.
Oh, I mean, come on, man. Like they're Harbaugh. I mean, he's got
pleated pants, man. He's got power of the pleated pants.
Yeah, he totally ditched. I don't like that they don't wear maize pants on the road. I mean, it's like being petty, but like it's just kind of weird. It's like why like what's up with the like weird like striped white pants? Like I don't really get it. But whatever. Not the most important of issues here, right? But I digress.
Yeah, no. I mean, Iowa will not. They like. Here's the thing. If you count Iowa State, who is no longer ranked, and I don't think will be ranked again, like Penn State was their only ranked opponent they'll face this entire year until the Big Ten title game. Mm-hmm. They played a backup quarterback that was so deer in the headlights, just kind of thrown into his first game. Like he's a 5-star recruit. That kid's going to be great, but not now. I mean, like you're not prepared for this. Like you weren't prepared for this in any way. You get thrown into this game. Just deer in the headlights, and you won by 3 points. In your own stadium, I don't think you have what it takes to get through. Yeah, you're going to get through the regular season. I think the toughest opponent you play now is Northwestern. I mean, like, and an unranked Wisconsin team that turned out to really not be worth their preseason ranking. You know what I mean? Like, they have nobody ahead of them until the Big Ten title game, and I think that's going to be a huge shock for all those people that are going to throw on the black and pumpy cheese yellow, like that gas station pumpy cheese, like that's the yellow color that they have. And they're going to be in for I think a rude awakening, whether that's a rematch with Penn State, whether that's Michigan, whether that's Ohio State. I don't think it matters. Whoever wins the East, I think is gonna, because they will not have played anybody except for one quarter against a ranked opponent starter. Like I mean, it's that's how this goes. But then again, that just opens up the whole can of worms of, I don't think we should do preseason rankings. So because it takes 3 weeks just to sort out the mess they created by saying that somebody was here. Yeah. And like, honestly, like what good does that do? And I'm going to ask you as a former college football player, like you enter into a season, like, is that something that you as a player, like you're thinking about, you even talk about, or is this just like placating fans by like trying to pre-hype before it actually gets there? Like, and I'm honestly asking, is that thought about, like when,
it's this big picture stuff that you're focused on, like the here and now, you're not all this stuff about like, I remember Jimbo Fisher always talked about like, it's not about like, you're not trying, your goals aren't to win like how many games in a season. Your goal is to be the best at what you do today, to win this drill, to win what the one-on-one matchup you're in. In the totality, the accumulation of all that will end up, will result in somewhere we want to be if we do all those things. That's the mentality that the best programs have. It's not like, it is like a blinders type mentality. And so, to be real, it's like most players aren't really like, dialed into all this stuff.
It's wild to me that we enter a season, it's
about rankings and what people are saying on like the sports talk. Now they are dialed in about issues of like what's going on, like in communities and like in their own lives and about like the way,
Yeah.
each other and like, the way the treatment of players and issues like that, but not like, what preseason prognosticators are like throwing out there in the ether. I mean, no.
Yeah.
Man.
And the worst, go ahead.
I want to come back to this, and like this is a pretty ADD episode, but I also like I did have this lined up, and I wanted to share because we, some people are coming in now, and I want to play just so we can react to this the Outkick like little 3-minute response or so to like the Gruden emails. I think it'll give us some good fodder to kind of dig into from this, because I hate being like Mr. like like always like kind of, but it's like it isn't. I mean, they've developed a huge platform, and by going after, and I feel like very surgically and clinically kind of like diagnosing the demographic that's out there that's craving that and exploiting it like religiously and consistently and helping to really drive up and really be the the One American News of sports media. And that's really what they are. The point is to drive. It's like social media algorithms. It's to drive the polarization to the widest levels, and then sit back and just watch the clicks pour in, right? And that's really what we're seeing. And just from a level of just respecting, I guess I don't respect anything about what they're doing, but just in terms of like a worthy adversary, they are. They understand the way the game's played and how to manipulate people's emotions and whatnot. It's a whole debate about, but it's just, let's just go ahead and play. We'll react to this. All right, this is Bobby Carpenter, right wing, former Ohio State linebacker who was like the Bass brothers with AJ Hawk when they played at Ohio State, remember, from like 02 or like 05 or whatever. And so they're like, the bros. Look at his background there. He's got his cross and his like cowboy footballs and picture of AJ Hawk and Bobby back here. And Bobby's about to give us the real motivation of the NFL's leak of Gruden.
Can't wait.
Let's hit the thumbs down real quick first, though. There we go.
Yeah.
Nice.
We got Gruden. Obviously, the emails come out. Some racial stuff, some homophobic stuff.
Yeah. Here we go.
Stuff.
Just some racial stuff. Like, I mean, that's not the best example, honestly. Like, I think he's just casually doing that. It's not like something he like thought out, but it's like it reveals like just how normalized it is to just use euphemisms that are like just epic in nature, right? I mean, just like it's just racial stuff, right?
Yeah.
Racial stuff, man. Like, no biggie. And yet these cancel culture weirdos are getting their panties in a wad, right? So I don't know. Back to Bobby.
It's all in there. He tried to get ahead of it. And the NFL, whoever is leaking this out, and however it got out there, because there's 650,000 that came from the Washington football team investigation. And so someone either A, has an axe to grind with Gruden, they maybe want to punish the Raiders, or maybe they're just trying to make the NFL look bad. But I'm curious as who in the NFL office, all
right. In fairness, these are decent questions to ask, because it's the reality is like why it was leaked. All right. It's not like necessarily the question to like why it was leaked and by who and what their motivation is, I think is a decent question, because that will help us understand why maybe other emails aren't coming out, right? And get to the bottom of like kind of where this whole rabbit hole actually begins and ends, right? But it's still like acting as if like taking the spotlight away from just what it is. Like when things get exposed, like I mean, on a certain level, it's I want to know how it came out for those reasons I just mentioned, right? But he's asking is like, that's like as big of a problem as like anything Gruden said, right? It's like the violating of like the privacy, the bro code. And to me, it's like, I mean, I do believe in privacy rights, but it's like, it is funny though, how these people like they get so mad when like anything gets leaked, right? When it has any effect of like feeding into quote the woke mob that they hate. Yeah. I don't even know what that is. I mean, if you're talking about like the woke mob of like the ridiculous like liberal establishment and them trying to like thought police everything. I mean, I generally agree with that. Like, I mean, but what that what's messed up though is like they are conflating like working class people, the broader left, with like MSNBC, the thought police,
Yeah.
like that, as if those are the same thing. So it's a
Yeah.
total like disconnect in terms of like what that even means, like what the left is. I mean, honestly, it's like hard to tell even in some ways now because it's just so many contradictions and divisions. And we are going to touch on Kyrie here in a bit. I need to do that, but let's go ahead and finish this. Because
I just want to back up, like just to throw out there Jeffrey's comment. I thought the exact same thing when he said that. Like somebody just wants to punish the Raiders. Like, like really, like they've been like 8-8 forever. Like that's a good year. Like how are you going to punish them?
Yeah, so Jared Ball was on Bamman yesterday. Maybe we'll have to try to see if we can pull a clip up from that or so. He was on for the hour. All right, anyways, let's go back to Bobby Carpenter here.
These things out. And you've got some of the biggest people on this thing, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal. I mean, there's some big time entities,
He's
Washington
smart.
Post, that are going to be diving in on this. And so trying to figure out what the motivation was. Is this just to smear the whole NFL? And I'm curious if there's anyone else, because it seems like when you look at this, that Jon Gruden was just singled out. That he was selected, football. And they went after him. They got him fired. He's gone. And what he said, that stuff, it's fireable. But it also was private. It was also stuff that happened while he was working at ESPN. And that was, 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago. I mean, this is stuff that's
they didn't know about it
out there
right?
for a while. Just no one knew about it because it was private communication between him and Bruce Allen, was the president of the Washington football team at the time. I guarantee you, there's a lot more stuff in there that is maybe as bad, maybe worse. And
he's like, trust me, I know from personal experience. Like, dudes are hella racist and hella homophobic. All right, like, I mean, I need to say it's like that's been one thing for me is on this journey, like going in through after getting injured in 2008 and oh wow. And then, having the injury stuff I had and kind of developing sort of like my leftist politics and whatnot, it was hard. It's just like deprogramming all the stuff to normalize kind of like, homophobia you hear and stuff. And it's like, even though how bad it is messed up, it's like your brain is like almost poisoned at a certain point where like you still, you've worked through stuff, but it's like you have these like, voices in your head. You have these, and it's like that culture, and that's for someone who's actually broken away from that, is able to critically analyze it. But if you're within that, right? I mean, it's not even just the overt type stuff a lot of times. It's just like the casual, just like, just idea of just, just calling anybody who's not cool, gay, anybody, just doing that. That word, the F word, FAGGOT, right? It's just used, a lot. And then it's also used as a way to like, describe you as a means of saying you're not a good ball player. You're weak. You're not a man. You can't play. Right. And so then people internalize that. Right. And then that affects the way they interact and deal with the world and people around them. And so Bobby Carpenter clearly understands, like, this is just the tip of the iceberg here. Like, let's hear the rest of this.
I'm interested to see if we see the slow leak of that stuff come out and continue to kind of go after the NFL. People are still going to watch, but I'm trying to figure out the motivation and how it was coming out, because now you have the NFLPA, who they say they want to see all 650,000 emails to see what's in there. And I don't blame them. If this was a legal battle and they could get these through discovery, they will probably try to find the way. And I believe the NFL and Washington will hide them as much as they possibly can. And don't tell me for a second that there's not some incriminating stuff of Daniel Snyder on there. There has to be 650,000 emails. There's going to be some illicit stuff. And I guarantee you there's a lot of other coaches around the league that are trying to scan their brains, trying to figure out exactly what they said. And if they ever sent communications to Washington, whether it's scouts, whether it was front office, whether it was other coaches, because all those emails were going to be subpoenaed or processed by the NFL, and they're all part of it. What the amazing is, some of the stuff Jon Gruden said, and like I said, not everything, but there's some things that he threw out there about the league and the perception of what they're trying to do that I think a lot of other coaches hold. I'm fairly certain that they do.
All right, let's talk about that. What do you think he might be referring to there? I have a pretty good idea. about
Yeah.
the wussification of
Sam.
football. Michael
Yep.
Sam, but also like I've heard this for
Oh my
years.
God.
The wussification of football. It's like we're getting soft, right? Like it's not
Mhm.
like the game it used to be. To me, that's pretty clear, like what he's referring to.
Woman
Right there.
referee,
Like, yeah. Like how
even the
did
safety, like helmet standards and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. Look how stupid the helmets look now. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like, the helmets do, like, some of them don't look that cool, but that's not the most
Actually,
important
nice,
thing,
man.
right? You know what I mean? Like, that's not. That shouldn't be. I mean, it is to. I mean, ask Antonio Brown; he'll give you a different answer. But I don't know. That is funny. Antonio Brown. It's like that. That was wild, man. Dude was actually ready to quit over his helmet. But at a certain time, you're a player. I guess I can get it on one level. You've played in a helmet your whole life, and like it's a degree of comfort. What makes you feel, able to get your mind ready to go play that game. But that was pretty wild. But yeah, it's definitely that. Michael Sam, the female referees and stuff. It's almost done here. Let's wrap up the list.
As just from listening to other players and guys who I've contacted throughout, the last couple of days, there's some opinions of certain, people and what the league's been trying to do and how they've managed some of this stuff that, I don't think are exclusive to Jon Gruden. So I'm curious if this other stuff starts leaking out, who it impacts. And I believe if, Jon Gruden was maybe at a more powerful organization, that maybe this stuff is squashed and never even sees the light of day. But alas, he's with the Raiders. And Mark Davis is a punching bag, I guess, for the other owners. And they let it get out and they forced his hand. But don't tell me for a second there's not other owners, player or coaches, front office, scouts, everybody else not shaking.
Again, he's like, trust me. And we got Mike here now, so I kind of just wonder what your thoughts are on this in general. We've just been kind of going on this, but like it's funny how, again, like looking at Mark Davis, he might be onto something there, because Mark Davis is, I think he has the least amount of capital in the bank account, first of all. He's also, daddy's boy. People know that. He's, like, the Raiders haven't been good. And it's like, and I think that with the Dan Snyder stuff, that's something we need to talk about, though. So, Mike, I want to get your thoughts, and then I want to bring it to Dan Snyder after this.
Well, actually, oddly enough, I think I definitely do think Roger Goodell wanted Gruden out, and I think it definitely was a push by the NFL explicitly to screw over the Raiders, but also screw over Gruden. He called the commissioner, a lot of expletives and stuff like that. I think it even goes back, the Raiders have always kind of done their own thing within the NFL, this conglomeration of owners. I was reading an article that said Roger Goodell was actually becoming commissioner. One of the only franchises that abstained from voting for him in 2 of the rounds was the Oakland Raiders. So probably old business, old. He had to settle old debts, in regards to the Raiders franchise. I mean, just in general with the emails itself. I mean, it's pretty much all that could be said. Has been said. Jon Gruden's a wild guy. Pretty fascinating, man. If you read those emails, besides the obvious, besides the boldness to actually say all this stuff through work email, or at least, so let's say it was his personal email. He sent it to someone else's work email. So that's crazy bold. But even if you look at some of the articles, the people that were on that thread of email chains included, the CEO of PDQ, which is like a chicken chain restaurant down here. At least I don't know if it's broader, but he's based in Tampa. An executive with the Outback Bowl from Tampa was on that email thread. I believe it was along with some other, these were like not like, regular people. These were like exclusive, higher up elites, in this like football world or in this world.
Right. I mean, who Bruce Allen is. I mean, he's like, his brother was Virginia, GOP Senator George Allen, who had a huge influence in Republican politics. He's the one who also had the in his own racist scandal, with calling that racial slur on his own campaign. This is like back in the 2000s, early, and then his dad, George Allen, the illustrious head coach of the franchise, back in the their glory years before the Joe Gibbs glory years, right? So we're dealing with that, and then now it kind of, I don't mean, do you have anything else you want to say real quick before we kind of bring up the Daniel Snyder angle, because I think that is interesting, and I think there's going to be. Stay tuned for that, basically, because this man's got skeletons in his closet. The stories of what's gone on, what you've heard, is just the tip of the iceberg. From things I've heard that he's had affairs. This guy has had
One last thing I add is the first emails in terms of was sent to the Oakland Raiders, specifically about the racist comments, racist tropes, about Michelin lips with NFLPA Executive Director DeMaurice Smith. Well, fascinating enough, it wasn't even looked at from the fact that, this former head coach was insulting the executive director of the players union, they kind of focused on the racial aspect, which is important. But then he made racist comments against the head of organized labor for the players. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They didn't the class factor really didn't factor into that. But also I really do think, and it's fascinating to think about it. They sent that emails thinking that was enough to pressure Mark Davis to fire or for Jon Gruden to resign. The racism. But obviously that wasn't enough. Why wasn't that enough? Because you had a lot of black Oakland Raiders players, former players like Tim Brown. We even have current players like running back Josh Jacobs. Derek Carr's already right. They're just going to forgive him. So you had a lack. It almost seemed as if the NFL thought, we just sending this is going to be enough to pressure him. And they sent that Friday. And then on Sunday was when the New York Times article came out with the other emails. So it was Mark Davis obviously sat on his hands on this. He got an email. He got the emails from the NFL showing, the racist comments from his head coach. He sat on his hands, didn't do anything. And then it made the NFL send the other emails. And it's just fascinating to see how, I think racism is a significant problem in this country, and racist acts, should be condemned. And you have seen people pay the consequences for racism. But in this case, racism wasn't enough. You needed sexism, you needed anti-worker, you needed calling the commissioner the F word, you needed homophobia, you needed a lot, and that's what finally tilted them over. And I wonder if gladly it happened, and I think it's a stern lesson. I mean, it's fucking fascinating to see right wingers kind of corral around Jon Gruden now, as if he was one of them, but to show it's crazy, Nate. This whole rhetoric around, he's being held accountable for emails from years ago. That's total BS. And then literally a year and a half, 2 years ago, what was it? Brett Kavanaugh was up for confirmation for something, and because of allegations and stuff. So these same right-wing fans, these same kind of right-wing ideologues, you even said Clay Travis, you shared it, Nate, how immediately afterwards he was rappers say much worse stuff.
Yeah. And why did the Bucks take Jon Gruden out of the Ring of Honor when Warren Sapp's still in there? Mic drop, man.
They thought he killed it, but the thing is, Jon Gruden's in a position of power, bro. He's in a position of power. Riley Cooper said the N-word, he's still on the roster.
Check it. So we care more about thought police than actions. This is what Clay Travis was saying on Tucker. He's like, it's clear now that thoughts matter more than actions.
It's just part of the same trope of how it's just part of the same trope about how there's, and it's definitely political, when it's somebody who's kind of right wing or whatnot, you have this defense on, you should let their history be their history. That's in the past. But when it's someone else, you disagree with on a political point, especially in regards to, I can't really think of an example, but you just see the hypocrisy kind of fall out. So it's been just fascinating to see all this play out. And like you said, Nate, leading to Dan Snyder. This whole investigation was based on the Washington football team's owner. It's crazy you know, they were really having cheerleader. You know, they really used to have photo shoots with the cheerleaders, and would have sponsors who sponsored and paid into it. They could attend this photo shoot in which these cheerleaders would be topless. And Jon Gruden got the pictures, you know, and he wasn't even part of the Washington football team. So just a horrible culture in general. But like you said, it definitely seems like they're shielding everything from being released, you know, especially one that could incriminate probably one of the more profitable franchises in the Washington football team.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring up this New York Times just dropped a piece on this saying Gruden's emails were collateral damage in Washington football inquiry. Former Raiders coach toxic commentary emerged from a separate investigation, had nothing to do with him, and remains secret because the probe was designed to be opaque. All right, and basically, let's just kind of look for a few headlines here, but it's just what you said. I mean, it's like he's collateral damage essentially because this probe was looking into Daniel Snyder, right? So that's why we know about this essentially, is that you had investigations going on to uncover information of the conduct of Daniel Snyder that ended up turning up this stuff on Jon Gruden. You know, and then from that, you know, stuff about, you know, you see in here it's about, you know, Goodell, the league's commissioner, concluded the workplace environment, of course, we know this with Washington, was highly unprofessional and a place of bullying, intimidation, and fear, right? So the scorched earth dispute has played out over the last year, damning information, accusations of wrongdoing. But, you know, if Gruden, you know, he has been like an avatar of the sport itself, right? So as we go on, let's not forget, not just coaching, but Monday Night Football, you know, with his gig there for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
So when we go here, going down, where is it? Yeah, Snyder's filing lawsuits and stuff about his, you know, his image and people, you know, defaming him. You got stuff here. Yeah, then he starts selling off minority stakes in the team. And then this whole through the end of 2020 and into 2021, you had this NFL investigation going on. So it's clear, I think, that the people involved in that investigation leaked this. And that's kind of where we are right now, which leads me to believe that the stuff on Snyder is going to have to surface here soon. You know, if it's not just in court, but it may just be in court. But yeah, I mean, there's some wild stuff here, man. Like it goes on. Though Gruden and Allen ceased being co-workers in 2008, they regularly chatted. We know that, right? So anyways, whatever. It's not as bombshell as I thought. But I did want to go and get Mike's reaction to this, though, man. The man here is back at it, and I'll just let it play, and let's see what you think.
If we are offended by a woman, or a white woman, it's perfectly appropriate
Talking about Jon
to
Gruden.
Go on national TV and cry.
So Mike, just for context, he's going in on Randy Moss and Ryan Clark as being like weak black men, basically, because they cried and are becoming emasculated, and that
feminine energy.
We're bringing this feminine energy that's like, and it's rooted in white supremacy. He's saying that like they want to go take out guns and like shoot people in their neighborhood, but then they cry when they offend a white man, and he's trying to act like he's the avatar representing like the black perspective. And I'm just saying, I don't know. Like, I mean, I'm sure there's some people, but I'm pretty damn sure his show on The Blaze is overwhelmingly white men. You know any black folks that sit around like, oh man, did you hear what Whitlock said? I mean, like this cat. I mean,
you watching The Blaze?
Like Candace now.
What?
He's like Candace Owens. He's like in the black community, he just really has no one really listens to him. He kind of has but he has a brand though, you know, like he's a shock jock. He's like going to present a perspective. I mean, his whole anti-LeBron like fixation at everything. Like everything. Like I don't know if he talked about LeBron's vaccine hesitancy, but he was talking shit about him for not showing leadership. And then when LeBron said he was vaccinated, he called him a sheep. You know, I don't know. It's just like he's like deranged, you know. But I mean, Somebody gave him a platform, and wasn't he bald last year?
No, man, he's been growing the hair back out, bro.
Where did that come from?
I don't know.
Yeah.
No, wait, one more minute of this. I gotta get my fix.
You will get great applause. Awesome. Yeah, you do. Stick. That's it. Yeah, cry. Black people, white people, everybody will applaud you. You get offended by a black man, you go straight to, oh, it's on site. And that's what Randy Moss did yesterday. He went to Twitter and promoted the fact that it's on site as soon as he sees me.
Yeah.
And so I'm not surprised. I would like to tell Randy and anybody else out there the reason why I conduct myself the way that I do, and the reason why this show is called Fearless. Is because I'm protected by the blood of Jesus. And so I really don't care what your reaction is.
The blood.
I really don't. If it's on site, I think I'll survive. If I don't survive, must be my time to go. But at 54 years old, I'm just kind of over it. And I've been over it again. When I was younger, I've been through this, athletes threatening to kill me, threatening to beat me up. Wayne Simmons, former NFL linebacker, attacked me in a club. I've talked about it on this show. But that was in my younger days.
Probably deserved it.
But I'm more resolute now at 54.
All right, whatever, man.
Than back then. And back then, I was just kind of
bumpy. All right, Mike, you got another one here. We're gonna play real quick. That we gotta see here, man. That cat is, man.
It seems like he's just daddy's little boy, a little robot who's completely controlled by his father.
Like I said, and going back to Whitlock, I don't think he can comment on anything but snacks.
Now,
wow.
Absolutely.
It's going to be harsh because he want to be harsh
so
on me.
So you disrespect
Guess what?
women and people for their
no,
weight?
That's what you say. I didn't say nothing about
No, you just said that to me.
Like I told him, I'm not.
That's my favorite Whitlock quote. The only thing he can talk to me about is snacks.
I can't, man. Oh man!
Not to be taken seriously, I just can't.
Yeah, you're right, man. So, anyways, yeah, I know Justin, you got a little bit longer, but anyways, I want to, before we go, we were talking a little bit about this, and I did want to at least touch on it. I mean, with the Kyrie stuff in New York City, and just kind of like, I know Mike, you got a take on it, but I mean, my whole thing basically is like that. I think that, yeah, I mean, LeBron was hesitant and came along, and I'm vaccinated and been for a while, and it's like, but at the same time, I do kind of, it's tough seeing. I've talked to different people, and whatever their reasons are in this society, the fear people have. I just think the New York City approach is counterproductive, and I think that from what I understand, and you look at the what Kyrie definitely talked to the guy at the Athletic. I can share my screen real quick and point to a couple of quotes here, but it's clear that, I mean, when it says people close to Kyrie in this article, I don't know how it. I think it's pretty much was Kyrie probably, but there's multiple sources here, right? There he goes. Actually, I'll start here. Yeah. All right. All this is left the Nets to account for how to handle unprecedented situation. Is Irving anti-vax, and what is really behind his choice? Will City Hall change the mandate? How will he handle blah, blah, blah? Multiple sources with direct knowledge of Irving's decision have told The Athletic that Irving is not anti-vaccine. His stance is that he is upset that people are losing their jobs due to vaccine mandates. It's a stance that Irving has explained to close teammates. To him, this is about a grander fight than the one on the court, and Irving is challenging a perceived control of society and people's livelihoods, according to sources with knowledge of Irving's mindset. It is a decision that he believes he is capable to make given his current life dynamics. Quote, Kyrie wants to be a voice for the voiceless, end quote, one source says. So, yeah, I mean.
He literally did an IG Live yesterday where he said that this isn't about any political agenda, any politics. He basically he basically rhetoriced it all. Like this is about something and that and that. I mean,
well, yeah, I feel like he's not doing a very good job. That if that's the point he's trying to make, he's not really articulating that very well. I mean, you saw that it's just like through sources. He's not like even like just like I'm protected by God. So I mean, that would be like my criticism. It's not he's not bringing that up as like an issue of even an issue of nuance, right? He's just kind of like it's kind of cryptic and.
I mean, I just think that's how he is. I mean, he's also, at one time he was a flat earther. I mean, he supported good progressive causes and stuff too. But I mean, there's a lot of like semi-conscious people out there who like, get a lot of education from different like sources. They say their own research, and he strikes me as that type of guy. He was like, he was born in Australia, lived there till he was 5, then grew up in Jersey City. What, Jersey?
No, yeah, outside, yeah, close
Jersey
there,
City,
yeah.
Jersey. Yeah, I mean, he's a talented athlete. He said out his words that he's not trying to be a part of any political agenda. But what I will say is part of his stance, what it is doing is like leading to, Donald Trump Jr. like retweeted it and said, I stand with Kyrie and he's a better, stronger champion than Colin Kaepernick ever was. They're comparing him to Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
I mean, well,
he actually did a commercial for vaccination. I don't know. I think,
but you're not troubled at all with like just the way we're getting to where. I mean, the whole like vaccine passport stuff, and I'm not even talking about the vaccine now. I'm talking about like the way in which like the people like Gates and Pierre Omidyar, and the way that like the people that for a long time wanted to move everything towards everything we do having to be in a digital space to be able to look. It's one thing in certain countries that, like you mentioned, socialist countries that have a social credit system, but in the context of the U.S., like having something where deciding where you can go, you can't go is going to be, we already have. Honestly, you could say, yeah, we already have that essentially. Look at Google Maps; they have all our data and stuff, anyways. But I mean, it is troubling when you look at like where things are going. And I know that like, you would say like under the system we live under that, like, that's why it's essential that people get organized, because, that's what's in that. The ruling classes, big tech is going to do what they do. But the way in which so many people like don't seem to be, critical of like, big tech and the and kind of like, even if you bring these issues up, you're immediately looked at as suspect that like you're actually an anti-vaxxer, as opposed to just having legitimate concerns about how people with ulterior agendas are trying to exploit something that's unrelated to create a system of like, I think the cashless society stuff's troubling too. I mean, like, and people don't talk about that enough. I feel like, we live in a world right now where cash is going to be phased out. Think about organizing efforts and raising money. What if cash is basically gone in like 5-10 years, and there has to be a digital paper trail for like groups that do organizing work, their fundraising and whatnot? It just seems like it'd be a lot easier. It's going to become a lot easier for repression to be practiced in the norm with everything. And also people who just don't have access to smartphones and stuff having to like be part of this system, making everyone the global South become part of like having to have a digital ID and stuff like that. I don't know. It's just stuff like, I feel like there's a lot of that going on now that people aren't paying attention to, because it's like you feel like that's just kind of labeling you as like a crazy person for talking about it.
I mean, how's that different than all the other stuff on the left, where it's like if we bring up certain things, you know what I mean? Like we bring up, like, how many different things can we not like talk about on the left?
I mean,
I get it, but.
So on the COVID thing, Nate, what I will say is I think it's just we just in two different, like we're literally like in two different like universes in regards to how the state in our areas has dealt with it. Like Cali, New York, especially. Y'all have been locked fucking down. You know what I'm saying? Florida's never experienced a lockdown, so like it's kind of weird from the perspective of Florida. We think COVID mitigation measures and progressive-minded people welcome them because we just haven't had them. Yeah. In other places, like and these are more Democratic ran areas where you've had more lockdown. It's kind of like the opposite. You had the extremes of lockdown, and you have the fatigue, and you have like fucking in Michigan. Like the part of the lockdown was banning people from going to buy like farm equipment or like feed and shit. Stuff like that is silly, like California, they were banning people from eating outside, and
Yeah.
the mayor of LA something like that at a fundraiser outside. There's a balance that has to be had, but of course that can really only be dealt with via the local conditions of that place. You know, I mean, so I think that kind of skews the perspective, because it's hard for me in the abstract to be like, I'm for or against a mandate, right?
Yeah.
It's like in Jacksonville at one point, or in Florida like a month and a half ago, if you would have asked me if I was for mandating a vaccination, I would have probably been like, maybe not a mandate, but something like really to push it, because we were like real bad and Delta was spiking here really, you know what I'm saying? So it's like that, but it's just different contexts based on different places.
Yeah.
But
let me just interject one
Yeah.
thing to get your response. It's like I noticed that there's been a lot too of like, and you look at New York City, really diverse. Like that, it's almost like there's a huge class dynamic, because we live in a society where there isn't the kind of support for working class people. There wasn't like support for people to stay at home. People so they don't trust the system in general, like the system that bankrupts people for medical stuff, and then they're out. And so they're suspicious about anything the system's telling them to do, for a variety of reasons, like things you've heard, historical things, like their own lived experience and whatnot. I mean, the vaccination rates for like Black residents of New York City are significantly lower. So I just don't like those people being scapegoated for all the problems and then being like, you know, instead of like, I don't think it's a way to try to like, if your goal is to reach them, right? To say like,
I think the liberal trope of like blaming the unvaccinated for the pandemic is fucking ridiculous. Like it's the ruling class that's at fault. You know, they wanted to keep the economy open. They didn't want to pay people to stay at home. They didn't want to pay small businesses to keep their payroll. They're the reason why we have a prolonged pandemic. So I think at the end of the day, it's really on them. I don't know what I will say is I think, and it's something that even your cousin, Dave Snyder, who's a labor leader, leader and activist here in Jacksonville, UPS driver, was telling me how, what the lockdowns did was basically expose the different sectors of the economy. Like it literally exposed what's considered essential and what's considered, this professional managerial class that had really, the ability to work from home, or if it was like a call center job, you just like those jobs you do work from home, but certain jobs you just couldn't work from home. Like, they were reopening schools, bus drivers, down here, teachers. Were they, Trump last year considered teachers essential, which gave the Republican right-wing states purview to put them in the classroom, because they, that's an example, UPS drivers, and the working class is the predominant class that bore the brunt of COVID-19 at the end of the day, because they didn't have the ability to be locked down, to self-isolate, because they had to go out there to make money for their families. So what I think that did was kind of expose how bullshit to them these lockdowns were, because how in the fuck you gonna tell me that we gotta self-isolate and we gotta be safe, but the boss is yelling at me to run in there and ship packages faster or be around people and do other shit that's considered unsafe. So it's like, I think what that did was it kind of just showed like it just showed the hypocrisy of it. Like a lot of workers just didn't give a fuck about COVID because they live COVID every day. They like were out there every day. They were never like, the folks who were out there were never able to be locked down. It didn't matter. It was just like a regular day. So it's like, obviously, mitigation and other COVID mitigation measures wouldn't really work with them, because their boss at work 8 hours a day is basically acting like COVID didn't exist. And at the end of the day, people get most of their ideas from the authoritative institutions they're part of, education as well as work. What your boss tells you, people internalize those ideas. So I think that had a huge impact on people's perception of COVID. And at the end of the day, it goes to the bosses, to the ruling class, because they're the ones that set the agenda for all of this, so much that you literally have one section of the ruling class that is all about vaccine mandates, and then the other is like for reopening everything, like no type of mandates, like this supply chain shit is crazy. Like all those boats stuck out there and cars.
Okay, maybe you could tell us about that a little bit more. I mean, you probably talked to Dave, my cousin, more recently than I have. And what's their analysis on like from what I understand, it's like there's not enough container ships, right? And they're making stuff at a faster rate than they can be shipped back and forth between China and the U.S.
It's all about labor, man. At the end of the day, it's all about labor. They calling it a labor.
You're right. Yeah. They don't have enough people to unload the ships. They do have.
Right. Yeah. So what it's kind of fascinating to see capitalism like do stuff, and these rulers do stuff like be like, hey, let's not, inflation. This huge thing about inflation is everything's inflation. Inflated is up. All this shit. The CEO pay gap to worker pay gap since like 1968. Like it used to be what is like 23-1. Now it's like 360-1. Something absurd.
Right.
Something absurd.
360-1. Yeah.
Basically, you've had a wealth transfer from the working class to the 1% over 40 years. There was no talks about inflation then. You give people $2,400 in a stimulus check, maybe $3,000 some child tax credits. And then all of a sudden, there's a huge inflation issue, a huge labor issue. And from a labor standpoint, you are seeing companies have to pay more money because they're it's almost like they're in a bind because these jobs that got by, and that's essentially how CEOs make money, off of slicing wages at the bottom, paying people shit wages, and then people being afraid of being unemployed, working for $9 an hour.
Yeah.
So like now people ain't going to work for $9 an hour. They want what they're owed, and there's, opportunities for them. But I've also heard, yeah, 23-1 is very absurd. All of it's fucking absurd. But I've also heard that it's a fake crisis too. Because it could be a combination of both. But if you complain about inflation, complain about a supply shortage, and these companies just don't hire people, that could be a measure for them to drive wages back down,
Yeah.
So by what I mean? So right now, like we are pretty much in essentially like it's a fucking class struggle. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That is like very sharp right now between, those with property and those with aren't. So, kind of the task is, just, keep fighting. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of fascinating to see what COVID has exposed in the capitalist economy, and the gaps that is exposed to. So,
Justin, what you guys say on that?
Yeah, no, like 1,000% agree there. And I'm seeing that play out at my work. I'm seeing that play out, but at the same time, what did people expect were going to happen when it's like, hey, this thing's really serious. It's really nasty. This is really bad when it first started, but you're essential and you got to keep doing this. And then people do it without the vaccine. They're just doing this day in and day out. And now you're trying to be like, this right here is the key. And they're like, I've been doing this whole damn time. Like, and now you're telling me that like this, like, so you don't like, you create skepticism that way by leading them out there as, the front line of this and just taking the brunt of that and then going, oh, but now we got this thing. So now get this as well.
So my thing is like,
it's tough.
Yeah. And so just you made that point, and I think that like so New Jersey, the policy with like at least with teachers and education is that like for people who aren't vaccinated, they can take a PCR test every week, all right, and they don't lose their jobs, right? And it's like, whatever the reasons are, it's like for me, it's just like people that it is causing a lot of division. It's great. Our whole Facebook page for our union, basically our union leadership took it down because they're like, it's dividing people and stuff too much. And like people were, I think it's crazy. I'm a union rep for my building, but at the same time, it was really, getting to be all consuming. And yet New York, they won't do that. I think it is more kind of like political, and it's more like the kind of, more of a shaming type of thing, because like, I don't know, is New Jersey being like reckless and like, just, I know Florida doesn't require that, either. Right. So you have to, for me, I had to turn in my vaccine card, upload it to the app. Everything has to be like, in there, formalized through the docket app, and then if you don't, then you got to go through your school nurse and you got to bring in your negative test every week.
Nate, in New York, is there a huge like labor shortage? You know, do they have?
Well, they're having issues with this like school, like food distribution and stuff. They're having to move a lot of people around, so there's people that aren't really like good at certain positions and stuff now. It's like 10% of their staff.
Well, I guess
they're not. Yeah.
Well, I guess this is interesting. Well, like I know, like for example, like some hospitals in Florida have mandated it, others haven't. And I'm personally like, if you're going to do a mandate, you need to have like religious exemptions, as well as you can like a test a week. To me makes sense. Like I think it's silly just to piss people off based on it's like in terms of politics. You know what I'm saying? I think all you do is create like, but in New York is kind of the Democrat state. They always going to have power, which they will. It's a more densely populated area, and also maybe they're calculating that they won't have an issue filling positions. It's like it's based on, because Jersey also has different. Jersey has the densely populated areas, but also the more rural areas. So it's like they have more bases. They have to. I don't know. It's hard to describe.
Yeah, well, I mean, New York State has a lot of rural, a hell of a lot of rural.
Oh, it
areas.
does. Yeah.
Like, yeah. But like you talking about the New York City, that would make sense. But anyways, anything y'all want to? I'm getting to the point where I'm kind of fading. Right, to be honest with y'all, we need to. I did a show last night. I'm gonna, we got some stuff coming up tomorrow with the By Any Means Necessary. Check out the Redspin.
I got one thing I'd like to say about Kyrie. To go back to. I wanted to let you guys hit your role. I didn't want to like stop it and be like, no, one more thing about Kyrie.
Well, you want to have the last word? Or?
No. I just want to say one more thing about Kyrie, and that's that like when he found out, like through 23andMe or whatever the hell he did, that he was like a trace amount indigenous, and he said he was going to be political about that. And he was going to like make waves, and he was going to do things. I've never seen him talk about water rights. I've never seen him at a pipeline shutdown. I've never seen him talk about Line 3. But yet he talks about COVID and this vaccine like he doesn't want to make it political. And which is the one of those two things that he's made political? The thing that he said he's not going to make political versus the thing he said he was never going to shut up about. And the thing that he was going to make political. Like, I think that when it comes to Kyrie, that's just, I mean, it's like what Mike was saying, right? It's like, I think that he stands up for things. He'll say some things. It's kind of like how we talked about LeBron months ago, right? Where it's like, this is awesome. LeBron's gone down this political, like, now we need to put better people around him that can then teach so he can learn, like, and learn how to do stuff with this as where you go back to the flat earth stuff, you go back to the other things. It just kind of seems like, he's pulled in these directions, but I don't see a lot of follow through, good or bad.
I mean,
like,
he donates.
Okay. I mean, philanthropy is not the only way to, but and I get that. And it's not like I'm trying to dog the guy. I'm just trying to say, like, he clearly gets pulled in directions and he like runs with it like full steam, and then steam runs out and he's on to like something else.
He gives cryptic kind of like stuff. He'll mention stuff. He'll allude to stuff, but then I'd like to see more. Like when you look at his stated reason for why he's doing what he's doing, if it's about raising awareness for like the voiceless and people that like.
That's what the source said, Nate.
The athletic piece.
That's what the source close to him said. His own words. He didn't say that. That's the thing. He did a whole Instagram live for 10 minutes last night. He didn't say. The funniest part about that was Stephon Marbury was like, do your thing, right? And where's Stephon Marbury? He's in fucking Beijing, just chilling.
Bro,
no COVID, just like, yeah, man, do your thing. Yeah.
The people's hero, man. Like they got don't forget, they got the.
He's got a museum there.
They got the museum.
Yeah, but yeah, I just found that funny. That funny that he was on Kyrie's live stream, like hyping him up. And
Mike, that one of your goals. You're gonna have
where COVID's gone.
It's like he's in Beijing. Like, yeah, man, do your thing. I'm chilling in China.
Bro, when you lead the people in the revolution one day, maybe we'll have the Brother Flourish Museum built up in Jacksonville for you, bro.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
They're definitely gonna build a Nate Wallace museum when he comes back.
I don't know, man. I think the Brother Flourish one might take off.
Becomes mayor,
Yeah. Well, maybe my brother, but
for Wallace.
Yeah, man. Anyway, so on that note, I think we're gonna peace for the night. I appreciate people that checked it out, and we'll check it out later. Check out By Any Means Necessary tomorrow morning for the Redspin Report. And until then, till next time, we are out. Peace.